G'day guys, Kerry here. So this clip is the beginning of a project that I've kind of been mulling over and had percolating away in my head for a couple of years now. And I explain in the video, which is a chat with Mike King, about what it is that I'm kind of working on. The intent of this is to interview a few experts and different people in the industry about this subject and put it together into essentially a mini doco or an episode, whatever you want to call it, because I think it's important. I don't think we've talked about it publicly enough. It's one of those things that is uncomfortable to talk about, but I think we need to. But details are in there. So as always, look, if anything comes up and you're needing somebody to talk to, it's one of the bravest, most courageous things you can do is ask for help. So talk to a mate. If you don't have anyone you're comfortable talking to, that's sometimes where professional help comes in really useful. I have found with the, I'm surrounded by good mates and I'm surrounded by my family, and there is a support network there. But I personally have found talking to a professional counselor, therapist, whatever you want to call them, they have the techniques and methodology and systems to sometimes unravel all the stuff and help make sense of it. It's an ongoing project. I'm documenting it. I'm going to be sharing that with you guys. But if you're really stuck, man, reach out, message me. I'm not a therapist and I may not be the best person to help you, but I can also try and put you in contact with somebody who might be able to, and we can get the ball rolling for you, because it's important for ourselves, for our family, for our kids, that we're constantly striving to be better people, healthier people, better blokes. So yeah, enjoy this. It's the first of a few. As always, any questions, concerns, comments, just need to reach out, say hello, do get in contact, guys. I love hearing from you all. See you later. Mike King, thank you very much. Welcome to Good Blokes. I have to spend a couple of minutes, one, to thank you just for what you've been doing and continue to do. And also personally as well, because I've reached out to a few people. I mean, I sort of had this idea years ago to do this Good Blokes podcast, and got sidetracked as you do. I did a show and a podcast on DJing stuff. I've done a podcast on long range precision rifle, but really underneath it, what I've always wanted to do was this stuff and talk to people about those conversations blokes have when normally, there's no one else around, late at night, wee hours of the morning and stuff like that, because I think it's just important to show guys talking about important stuff. I think in some ways that's as simple as it needs to be sometimes, that people can watch it and go, that's how it's done. So I sort of had this thing that's been brewing in my head, and I've been talking to a few people about regarding the firearm side of things, the suicide side of things, and depression and mental health, and reached out to you, and to be blunt, was amazed because I've had no one get back to me as quick as you did and as positively as you did, and you kind of skipped a lot of the, we'll call it the formality, and was just friendly, and it's just like, oh, sweet, that's easy. So I truly appreciate that. So yeah, I mean, I've through weird, some ways, circumstances, I got involved with the firearms industry now about 10 years ago, I suppose. Prior to that, I was working in nightclubs and DJing for like over a decade. So I came from a very different place, Auckland Central nightclubs, into the firearms industry. But due to my upbringing, mum was a nurse, public health nurse. Growing up, we had foster kids floating around, and now I have conversations with my mum about some of the history of some of those kids coming in and out and some of the stuff that was going on in the household. So in some ways, I maybe had a bit of a good foundation, maybe slightly unique in dealing with some of the stuff. But I got into the firearms industry, and as is my nature, got heavily in the safety side of things, but then also started looking at the culture. And there's this crossover of, not everyone, but a lot of gun owners are that there's a lot of blokey blokes in the who own firearms and hunt and fish. And
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Not at all, no. And the bloke, for me, intentionally setting up that website was partly claiming back the term bloke, because being blokey became this thing of you're a bit of a meathead and into, bikinis and girls and alcohol, which is, again, in certain amounts is not a bad thing either. But it's like, no, you can also be a bloke and, have emotions and talk about stuff. And for me, it was documenting what I was learning, and Good Blokes is continuing for me to document what I am learning. One thing that came up with it's always been there, but the recent changes to the arms legislation bill and some of the submissions went through, there's been an undercurrent just talking to guys, and it hasn't been a lot of public conversations. I've had conversations with guys on ranges or hunting. I've had conversations with arms officers and police officers about this as well, but it's not, to me, I haven't seen a lot of public talk about this. So I thought, while we've discussed, we're not here to talk about guns necessarily, but there's an undercurrent going on that I think is worth talking about. And when I contacted you, I started doing a bit of research, or thinking of contacting you. And one of the submissions I came across was from the Suicide Mortality Review Committee. And I kind of thought this was the case, but it was interesting to see some statistics and figures come out. And people often talk about guys with firearms. They talk about, if you've got a firearm, I'll read out their quote because they've done it for me. Self-inflicted injury is the leading cause of firearm-related death in New Zealand, with approximately 50 deaths per year. Over the period 2000 to 2015, there were 867 deaths recorded as caused by a firearm, of which 708, so 82%, were recorded as self-inflicted. So the vast majority of deaths by a firearm in New Zealand are due to suicide, basically. And some people then go off on a tangent and say, well, if we ban guns, we're going to reduce suicide. And they've actually seemed to find it doesn't reduce suicide. It's just that blokes being blokes, if you're going to do it, you're looking for an effective method. And to be blunt, that's it. But what really interested me was another thing down here. And it's this paragraph here. Only 1/4 of those who die by gun suicide have previously been treated with antidepressants, which is lower than the 1/3 of those who died by other methods of suicide. Similarly, those who die by suicide using a gun have lower levels of prior contact with specialist medical health services and hospital treatment for self-harm than those who die by other methods. They're also very unlikely to have attended a mental health service, 11%, or previously attended hospital for self-harm, 5%. And to me, it seems to tie in with conversations that I've had that there's a big fear that if you have a firearms license and you ask for help and talk to a mental health professional or anything like that, you're going to lose your firearms license.
Yeah, so it's a real oxymoron, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's one of those discussions where you have to put your feet in the other person's shoes. From a gun owner's point of view, particularly a gun owner that's taking their own life, if there is a chance that I'm going to lose my license by talking to even a GP, that I may be having, a minor issue with my mental health, and reach out and ask for help. Correct me if I'm wrong, but then you have to report that to the police and you could have your license suspended, which is causing a lot of blokes and ladies to not report. And things hit crisis point, go beyond crisis point until they see no other option. So the obvious thing to do would be to say to someone, you won't automatically lose your license if you report, but then you put yourself in the shoes of the government official. And how does it look if there is a gun death and the coroner reports the gun owner reported that he was having issues, and the public outcry going, he had mental health issues and you let him keep your gun. So they've got to cover their ass. You know, so they're covering their asses. The gun owner's covering his or her ass. And now you've got two groups of people that aren't talking to each other. Is there a solution to the problem? Off the top of my head, no.
Part of me contacting you was the opportunity to sort of just give a forum, both for what you're doing and also just so I can kind of point out to some guys as what's going on as well. So for me, which I think I mentioned in my email, is maybe I don't, I'm not sure.
I don't read emails. So
no, that's well. I was like, yeah, it's like, did I sculpt the perfect email? You responded so quick. Anyway, in the last couple of years, I've had my father passed away, separated from a partner of 10 odd years, so split custody, quite a lot going on. And I think in credit to my parents, one of the very first things I did is like, right, I need to go get some counseling. And this ties back into what you were talking about with this notion, reframing the counselor in the same way that you would go to a personal trainer or you would go to a nutritionist or stuff before.
Correct.
And that was the first thing.
A doctor of the mind.
Yeah. So first thing I said to the counselor, because what I do involved with bits and pieces, look, I'm here to basically preempt any issues, because reality
that was the first thing you said to your counselor. The first counselor I went to see is, I wasn't bad touched as a kid. I don't have fucking relationship issues. Now fix me. Well,
actually, Mike, I said the opposite of what you said was the first thing I said to the counselor, but that's another conversation as to why. But so that I said to him, look, I'm involved with firearms, a lot of firearms around me, involved with everything is. And for me, one, am nervous, even talking to you because of the things we've said at the top of it regarding counselors and bits and pieces. But two, it was more important to me to make sure that everything got sorted. I weighed it up, and this is me, not necessarily everybody, but I was like, look, if it does get to the point where I need to surrender or hand off my firearms for a period of time, then that's fine. It's more important I get in the right state for myself, for my kids, family, everything. And still going through, I'm again going to set up regularly seeing a counselor for it. And I've just reapplied for his firearm license. I've reapplied. I'm a firearms dealer, right? So I can buy, sell guns as well. So the new form that they have, I won't read it out to you, but basically there's a tick box and it's along the lines, have you suffered or are currently suffering from any kind of mental illness, including depression, suicidal thoughts, stress, bits and pieces. And one, I kind of take exception to stress and to certain levels of depression being called a mental illness. Anyway, I'm like everyone has.
Is there an option? Was there an option there to say no, but I do see a counselor?
So here was my conundrum. I'm like, okay, I could tick no here. And I've actually had this conversation with a very senior police officer, and we're going to have follow up to this. This conversation with them about that. It's like, I could have ticked no, because I know if I tick no, it's not going to be ticked off. I don't have.
Well, it's an ass covering exercise for the guy that issued you the license. No, he put no down here.
He put no down. Fault. So I've ticked yes. Further down, I've ticked, have you had any significant life events in your last couple of years as death of family, separate?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And then right down, like everyone, I've written details because I want to, and I will document it, exactly what happens when you do tick yes to all these things. And there's a question now. You have to disclose who your primary health care provider is.
Yeah.
My doctor, who I go to see to when I've got a dicky knee, knows nothing about my state of mind.
Yeah.
But
he only knows you've told him.
Well, exactly. So that's an aside.
So did you submit it and did you get it back?
I'm in the process of. This is all part of it being in the process. And it was interesting as I was talking to a arms officer recently.
So what did your cop mates say? Did they say that you're going to be all right?
We'll find out, eh?
Well, like I would expect in this realm that you would, they would give you the courtesy of going in and having an interview.
Oh, yes. Oh, no, there's no question. So if
even if you don't click all of that, you still got to go in for an interview?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah. For my dealer's license now, anyway, every year I will have a sit down. A lot of it, some of this is new, but every year I'll have a sit down interview with a police officer regarding it. for this one, because I've ticked those boxes, I'm likely going to have to submit a letter from a mental health professional.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and that's fair enough, right? That's
Look,
fair enough.
I'm in the.
I'm sure your counsellor would go, no, he's good.
Well, he said to me, like, you're proactively coming and talking to me before because you're already got any. No, you've got no worries. I'm like, I know I've got no worries. That I know. That's why I'm going to go through this process and show it. Because of what I do, I suppose, or my nature of what I do, I also know I know gentlemen who have tried to take their life, not with a gun, but have tried to take life and have lost or revoked their licenses at the moment. And that is going to be the counterpoint maybe to my story, because like you said at the beginning, there is also, and rightly so, if a police officer, arms officer knows someone has tried to take their life and debating whether they should still have access to firearms, that's a prick of a position to be in on their part as well, because who wants to get that wrong and have it, you know, on a personal or a governmental level, both of the person. So yeah, no, I'm going through that process now, and that will be part of documenting it.